Welcome back to my channel. Another week and another semifinals recap. This is another late night live stream. It is just after 11. Like last week, I had to do this super late. This week, the same again, super late because I had work and Atlas games ended very late, but I just finished watching all of it, done with work, and I'm ready to talk to you guys about what I saw this weekend. It was another really exciting weekend. I'm very sad this is the end of our semifinals. That was the last weekend. Now we have last chance qualifier, which should be exciting, always exciting. And then we also have the games, and I'll be at the games. So make sure you subscribe now so you can see what I have from the games that'll be coming up in August. But right now we are still in semifinals. And one thing I want to talk about right off the top is I think that we're kind of seeing a changing of the guard here. We had a lot of athletes that you would expect to qualify that didn't. And we have a lot of new athletes, a lot of new blood, a lot of young athletes coming in. So I think we're seeing this is the beginning of the next years of CrossFit. We had several years that we've had the same people, a lot of the same people appearing over and over and over again. Some of these names that we've all grown to love. And we're just not going to see as many of them anymore. They're going to retire, they're going to move to masters, and just some younger, better athletes who have been doing this their entire life are coming up and knocking them out. We're starting to see more athletes that are people who've started this as children. You saw a lot of that in the Atlas games. Very, very young athletes who this is their sport. They didn't play something else all their life. They're not coming in with bad habits from previous sports. They're not coming in with injuries. They're just CrossFitters. They're kids that started in CrossFit Kids and now are going to the games. So we're starting to see a lot more of that, which is something we never saw before these last couple of years. So it's super impressive to see them. I'm going to share my screen so we can take a look at the leaderboards for these events this weekend. And I think we're going to start out with Copa Sur because that was the first semifinal to end this weekend and also the one that has the least number of athletes to talk about. So I think that's kind of a good place to start. On the men's side at Copa Sur, we saw Guy Malheiros win the whole thing. He won with a the first day and a half, he just slaughtered the field. Then a third and a second. On the sixth workout, he took a 12th. So that really was obviously his weakest point. I watched a little of Copa Sur. It's a little bit difficult for me because I don't speak Spanish. That's on me. But they did have a good broadcast. They had a broadcast. They had commentators. They had different cameras. So I was very impressed by that. And I think that is great for South America, where we're starting to see more people crossfitting and we're getting more people in the open from those countries. So I think it's awesome that we have this. And just when you also remember, there's a huge part of North America that speaks Spanish. So I think it's awesome that we have this. And I think a lot of people were tuning into that. I was surprised by just how many people I saw watching the live stream. It was definitely bigger than what I was seeing out of the far East Throwdown earlier and Cape Town. So I think that Copa Sur and South America is where we're going to start seeing some really awesome athletes. And I'm really impressed by what they have going on down there. We had two Brazilian men finish. This Pedro Martins, which I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. But when he qualified, there was a huge celebration. So this is big for Brazil to have two male athletes. I'm very impressed with who they're putting out now. And I think that Guy especially is just going to be someone to watch. If you look at these point spreads, I mean, Guy is won by 80 points. Mayhem athlete. Just I think that he has the ability to easily be top 10 this year, maybe top 5, maybe podium. So I'm excited to see Guy. I think that he's really worked on a lot of his weaknesses. We know he's strong right there. He set a record with a first place in that complex that we've seen all weekend or all month. That complex was the 3 cleans, 2 front squats, and 1 jerk. I know there was some discussion about that jerk and a re-rack or if it was a missed jerk. if the judge says re-rack, the judge says re-rack. And I guess that's what we're going with. But I think he could do it either way. I mean, he's obviously just one of the strongest athletes in the field. Very, very impressed by Guy. He's not even working on strength anymore. That's a thing of the past because he's just so proficient at that he's more focusing on more endurance, which he won first in an endurance event, and just other CrossFit things that he's not as good at. Strength is kind of put on the back burner because this doesn't need it. He doesn't need to get stronger. And I know in quarterfinals when he was doing the strength event, Rich just told him to stop lifting. He could have went heavier. Just like, nope, you're good. You've won. So super impressed by Guy. I'm excited to see what he does when he goes to the games in August in Madison. So we shall see that. Over here on the women's side, I think we talked about both these women in our preview show, Julia Cato and Victoria Campos. Maybe we didn't talk about Julia, but we definitely talked about Victoria. Victoria is another mayhem athlete. You can see right here, another Brazilian. I mean, it looks like Brazil swept the field for women and men at Copa Sur. Awesome weekend for them. Victoria Campos, she's another mayhem athlete. I mean, mayhem athletes are doing very, very well. That's some legit programming. I know a lot of people are doing it in their own gyms now. And I mean, what else can you expect from Rich Froning? Just absolutely one of the best in the game, one of the best athletes we've ever seen, one of the greatest of all time, and just a great programmer. Like Rich is a very good programmer, and we're seeing what his programming can do now that we're seeing so many athletes make it to the games from his training camps. And I believe Victoria Campos does train over at Mayhem most of the time and is not physically in Brazil most of the time because she's working in that training camp with those people. And we're going to see more Mayhem athletes as we go through the list of athletes who qualified this weekend. But super impressed by everyone coming out of Mayhem. Victoria Campos won by 56 points. That's also a pretty dominant win. So excited for her and excited to see how she does at the games. Now going over to this is the one, it looks like this is the one team that Brazil, or the one place Brazil didn't get someone in. We've got this, I believe that is Argentina, but don't judge me. That flag there, that is Q21 CrossFit. They won the whole thing and they did it in very, very, very dominant fashion. I mean, 115 points. That's huge. So very impressed by them. Look out for them in Madison, because if you're able to dominate a field like this, who knows, maybe they can surprise us in Madison. Now moving on to some of the bigger semifinals. We'll go to strength and depth first because that is the one that ended first. And here on the women's side was very, very interesting. And I'm going to be honest, a little bit sad. I was really bummed to see the end of Sam Briggs' career. I mean, I'm grateful to have experienced as much of it as I have. I've been to a bunch of the CrossFit games since 2014. Obviously, Sam Briggs didn't make it that year, but she's been at a bunch of the CrossFit games, and she's just seems like a great human, and I believe she's a great ambassador for the sport. I don't think we're done seeing Sam Briggs as an athlete maybe, but we're not done seeing her as an ambassador for CrossFit, I believe. I think that we're going to see her commentating and just being involved in the community. At least I hope so. Maybe that's just my hope. But so impressed with Sam Briggs, 40-year-old. I think she got the last backfill spot into this field, and she finished 7th. And that's a last chance qualifier position. Unfortunately, I don't think she's doing the last chance qualifier. She's got a lot of things going on. I think she's going to be helping Emma McQuaid train for the games because she qualified. We'll talk about her in a bit. But she's also, she's going to have an interview for the Fire Academy this coming Thursday. And I think that's her focus now. And she was asked if she's going to do a last chance qualifier. And her answer was that she doesn't think so. Maybe she'll surprise us and do it. I would love if she surprises us and does it. Oh, Sam, do it. If you're watching this, which you're probably not, but if you are, Sam, please do the last chance qualifier because I would love to see you compete again. And so close to making it to the games, 6 points out. That's a place and a half in an event. I mean, that's not a lot. So I wish we were seeing Sam Briggs back at the games again. Um, Unfortunately, that 27th finish on that barbell complex, I mean, that's what killed her, right? If she could have gotten a 25th, she would have been going to the game. She would have been your fifth place qualifier. Um, she put her shoes down at the end of the event, and she actually ends up giving those away and signing them. But it was emotional. I think she was emotional seeing all of the love she got from that field, from the field of competitors, but also from all the people watching. It was Strength and Depth was in London, and she's from, I believe, Manchester, but she was in her home country in front of basically a hometown crowd. And I'm I'm sad. I'm sad to see Sam Briggs retire. Maybe she'll go for Masters. I don't know, but Sam seems like an awesome person. I don't know her, but seems like an awesome person. I've heard only good things, and I wish she could have qualified this weekend. Bummed about that. But let's move up one spot to Katrin David's daughter. I think that when we previewed this, we all thought that she'd probably qualify, and she didn't. She had some bad finishes, 2 18ths and an 11th. She killed that last workout coming in first. She just went for broke on that, which, I mean, what else was she going to do at that point? Not quite enough to get her into the top five. Katrin is just one of those athletes that I feel like, I hate saying this, I just feel like she's fallen off of the last couple of years. She kind of won under some weird circumstances in 15 and 16. There was that one year, I'm not sure which of those 2 years, but one where she didn't even do a pegboard ascent, and she somehow still won the games without completing many reps in that workout because not many women did, which is a weird way to win the games. And I mean, she's had top five finishes. I don't know. I think Katrin seems like a wonderful person, too, I'm sure. But I've just never been huge on the Katrin David's daughter train. I've just always felt like she's lacking something. And I think that showed this weekend. She didn't qualify as a previous games champ. I know Sam Briggs is too, but Sam Briggs is 40 and Katrin is 29. So I just think that they're not the same. It's not comparable. And I don't know what we're going to see from Katrin in the future. I would love for her to surprise me and come out and win or come in second in the last chance qualifier and punch her ticket to the games. I love being wrong. I love when athletes prove me wrong. I don't know if we're going to see it. And I don't know if we're going to see her back at the games in the future. Maybe. I hope that she can turn this around, but who doesn't love a comeback story? I'm just not sure. But talking about our winners, Jacqueline Dalstrom, very impressive weekend. I believe she has a relationship with Emma McQuaid. They were cheering each other on throughout the weekend. They both got the same exact weight on workout 3. And when they saw each other both hit that same weight, they turned around and pointed at each other like game recognizes game. Very impressed by both these women, and also very impressed to see this as an older field. So we're about to talk about in the Atlas games how we had so many young ladies. But over here in London, that was not the case. I mean, young is relative, but they're older, more experienced athletes. Jacqueline Dalstrom being 30, Emma McQuaid 32, I believe 30 is also 30. But let's also talk about 30 Helga daughter. I feel like she's a daughter that's just forgotten all the time. Nobody talks about 30 Helga daughter. She's small, she's a smaller athlete, and she's just been impressive. She's went to the games many times. I think we should pull that up and see just how many games that she's been to. Six CrossFit games, and I don't believe that includes the one she just qualified for. She's qualified for her 7th CrossFit games as an individual woman. 9th is her best finished in 2019. So I feel like people sleep on Turi, and she had an impressive weekend. 2 first place finishes, back to back first place finishes. She had that 114th with that barbell complex. You have to remember, she's weighs 59 kilos. She's a light athlete. I believe that's like 128. So she's small, but she's like the forgotten daughter. And we talked about Katrin not doing as well, but Helga daughter, 7th CrossFit Games. Think she deserves a little bit more respect because she does really well. And I was happy to see her punch her ticket back. Another daughter here. Sol, I don't even know how to say her last name, but I know of her. So she won that barbell complex, which was pretty awesome to see. I feel like I've talked about before, that kind of tends to be an outlier event, but at this semifinal, a lot of the women who ended up qualifying did really well on that event. Now, if Sam Briggs had somehow managed to qualify, that would have been the one that was really low, but she did not. Sol had a great weekend. Sol's been knocking on the door. I know Sol's been pushing for this. She's talked about how she's become more confident in herself and believing in her ability to make it to the CrossFit Games. And I think that was one thing that really made a difference this weekend. She came in believing that she could make it in a way that she never has before. She came in, she won an event. She finished 3rd in that last event. She didn't want to leave her qualification up to chance. She didn't. She came in 3rd. And I was super impressed by her performance. I will say that last event of Strength in Depth, I didn't love it. If you take a look at some of these scores, we have a score there, but 30 didn't finish. The woman who finished 5th also did not finish. There were a lot of women that didn't finish the event, and it's a lot less exciting to watch a final event where most of the field doesn't finish it. I thought it was a really odd choice. Maybe it was just a matter of the women possibly needing a longer time cap than the men because of the calories on the Echo bike. But I was a little disappointed that that event ended with a lot of women not finishing, like Sam Briggs, last event of her career potentially, and she didn't finish the event. So I don't know. I didn't love that, but Sol did finish, so that's awesome. And it'd be cool to see her back at the games. But again, this is just an older field compared to what we saw at the Atlas game. And we have Elisa Fulani. She's 26, so she's the youngest of the group. And we have someone over in Atlas who's 17, 9 years younger. So it's kind of cool to see an older field, though. I enjoy that. I was talking about the changing of the guard. We are not seeing that much over here in Strength in Depth just yet. But I don't know if Elisa has ever been to the games before. I don't recognize her name, and that's going to be a no. She has never went to the games before. So she made some big improvements this year if you take a look at her quarterfinal finishes. So awesome to see some new blood. I also believe, well, I know that Sol is also new. So we've got 3 veterans, and then we've got 2 new women. So it's kind of awesome to see a balanced field like that. We're seeing some new and some old. Going over to the men's side, this was an interesting field too, because this could also go into that changing of the guard, although the other one kind of worked too with Katrin and Sam. Koski, who has been pretty good at the games and been kind of someone that you expect to qualify. You don't really think that he's not going to make it because he's had a lot of success. Didn't make it. Didn't do quite enough. He only didn't make it by 2 points. So really, if you think about it, if he came in 1 spot better in any of the events, he would have qualified. So it's just crazy to think about how seconds makes that much of a difference. He came in 4 seconds slower than the second place person on the last event. And if he had just come in 5 seconds faster, he'd be punching his tickets to the CrossFit Games. Koski is someone I think could possibly do well on the last chance qualifier. We shall see. I'm sure he's doing it. I don't know if anyone's asked him, but I imagine he's doing it. I also imagine Katrin is doing it. I think I mentioned that. But like I said, Sam, probably not. Sam Briggs. But here we go. Willie George finished in 1st. He's coming off an injury, although I think a lot of us did really believe that he could come in 1st in this field. And he did. So it was awesome to see someone come off an injury and just do really, really well. All of these finishes, I mean, except for this 11th, but 4th, 2nd, 3rd, 2nd, 4th. Those are all great finishes. Andre Huday, I think he was another person we had more thought could qualify. But I think a lot of these men, when I was previewing this, um, I didn't know if they were going to do it. I had some other men in my uh, top of my field, but Zach George was one of them too that I thought was going to make it. He's not even in a last chance qualifier position. So the men's field, very interesting, and a lot of different athletes that maybe I'm not as versed in the men's field as I am in the women's, but I did not see this happening. I saw Yonakoski qualifying, but he did not. So awesome to see some different people. It's more exciting. And this field was much closer. Like even second and third, you've got 3 points. Fourth and fifth, tied, 430 points. Sixth, 428. So for those fourth, fifth, sixth place positions, I mean, very, very, very close going into that last day, going into that last event. Made it for an exciting finish. And it'll make, at least Yonakoski being in the last chance qualifiers, will make for an exciting thing to watch in a few weeks. Interesting that we just had a lot of tight men over in this field, minus Willie George. Everyone else was pretty much battling all weekend. Over to the team side, this is where we didn't see a battle. CrossFit Oslo Navy Blue dominated the weekend, which is interesting to see another team dominate. We've had a couple teams sweep. We've had CrossFit Reykjavik. We've had Mayhem, of course, Mayhem Independence, their main team. And Mayhem Freedom. That's my bad. Mayhem Freedom. Mayhem Independence is their second team. I believe they won 3 or 4 of the events. But Mayhem Freedom and CrossFit Reykjavik and CrossFit Oslo Navy Blue now. 3 teams over 4 weeks have completely swept their events. CrossFit Oslo finished second last year. So we really shouldn't be surprised to see them do this well. I feel like people were a little bit, but they were a second place team last year. They came in second to CrossFit Mayhem. That's a good team. And they're obviously a good team again. 600 points on the weekend. The other teams are all close. 480, 460, 430, 430. A tie on that fourth and fifth. But CrossFit Oslo Navy Blue, they're on their own. They won everything. So super impressed with them. Excited to see them go to Madison again. I recognize a lot of the women on that team. The 2 women on that team won the Wadapalooza Elite Females Team Division with Kristen Holta. So awesome women, very, very strong. And I think for a lot of these teams, your women really make a big difference. And they have 2 fantastic women on that Oslo Navy Blue team. I think they're going to be a team to look out for in Madison. They're definitely a podium team. I mean, we could be talking about the 3 teams sweeping their semifinals being the 3 teams on the podium. Oslo, Reykjavik, and Mayhem. I can definitely see that. And I would love to see them all really battle and not have Mayhem out in front. Don't know if that's going to be a possibility, but it would be awesome to see. But all the rest of these teams, if you take a look at them, these scores for CrossFit Aylesbury, for CrossFit Trondheim, 430, 430, CrossFit 8020, 460. There was a lot of close teams minus CrossFit Oslo, who just was better than the field, better than the workouts. Very impressed by them. Like I said, exciting. Think they're going to be a podium contender. Now moving over to our final semifinal of all of the semifinals. Sad that we're here. But over on the men's side at the Atlas Games, semifinal happening in Montreal, Canada. Every single man who qualified, Canadian. I think that most of the men who qualified for semifinals who are Canadian were in this field. I mean, you can see all those Canadian flags. But there's a lot of good Canadian men. Like there's one Canadian flag near the bottom. That guy withdrew. But most of the Canadian flags near the top of this leaderboard. All but 2 of the top 13 people are Canadian men. So we're seeing some really fantastic Canadian men. And Jeffrey Adler had a really awesome weekend. 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 4th, 1st. You're going to qualify with those scores. I was listening to an interview with him after some of the events, and he was saying that after yesterday, going home, he hung out in his hot tub, worked on some recovery, and he felt like he could win this semifinal. And he went for it. He didn't leave it up to chance. He didn't leave it up to the field. He finished first in the 5th event and first in the 6th event. No way you're not going to win when you're that close to the top and then you beat everybody. 200 points on day 2, 200 points available, and you get the 200 points. It was awesome to see him battling with Patrick Vellner. I was more impressed by Jeffrey Adler, though, than Patrick Vellner this event. And I think that's just because Jeffrey came out and won it and dominated on the final day. He really put the pedal down and knew what he had to do and did it. And very impressed. I hope he didn't peak too early before the games. I trust that his coaches know what they're doing. He's a games veteran, and I think he could have an awesome performance at the games. And he has before. I mean, let's take a look at Jeffrey Adler a little bit more closely here, because I think he's got 3 games appearances, and he finished 5th in 2020. So he made it to that second round of 2020 in Aromas, 13th last year, 33rd his first year, but that's pretty much an upward trajectory. I know that 5th and 13th doesn't look great, but 2020 was a weird year. I'd be excited to see if he can make another top 10 finish this year, especially after having this very impressive showing and beating Pat Vellner, who is a podium contender every year. Although I mentioned this in our preview show, I don't think Pat is peaking for this. I think Pat is very aware that he wants to win the games. He wants to give it a real go to beat Justin Medeiros and the whole field at the games. And he's peaking for the games. This is a stepping stone to get to the games. This is qualify for the games. It's not necessarily win it. Awesome to win it if you can, but that's not Pat's goal. And I think it's okay that he finished second. I'm sure he would have loved the first. Who wouldn't? But I think that's okay that he finished second. He did well. He needed to beat Jeffrey Adler in that last event and then get help. Adler came in first, Pat came in second. So even if that was reversed and Pat didn't miss the rope that one time and miss hitting the beam that next time, I don't know if it would have done anything. I mean, it wouldn't have. There would need to be someone between them, and no one was that close. So Jeffrey just came in and wanted to win it, and very impressed with how he did it in the last day. Alexandra Caron is in third, another games veteran. Alex Vigneault, we talked about him in the preview show, qualified again. The surprise, the one person out of all the men, we talked about all the other 4 that qualified, and all the other 4 are games veterans. Nicolas Joyal, I think is what they said. Nicolas Joyal. And he's been in the game for a while from what I've heard, but this is the first time he's qualified for the games, first time he's been able to make that push, and just very impressed to see new blood. New blood's always awesome, and he was in a tough field. This is a tough field. So the fact that he was able to do that is very impressive, and he won the first 2 days. He came in first after day 1, and I believe I heard the announcers talking about how almost the majority of the time, if you win those first 2 events, you're going to be in the top 5 at the end of the weekend. From the times that we've been having these top 5 qualifying, we used to have 3s when it was, back in the regionals days, the early regional days. But since we've moved to this 5 qualifier format, if you finish first in the first 2 events, you're almost a lock to make it to the games. And he had some workouts he was worried about, and he had a 24th finish in workout 3. But the rest aren't too bad. 14th's not great, but not awful. 8th is fine. 3rd is fine. So that 24th is one outlier. But overall, impressed by Nicolas Joyal. And we'll see him at the CrossFit Games, see what he can do there. This was a hard field. So you can hold your own in this field. That certainly says something. Moving over to the women here, we have Emma Lawson. Emma Lawson was our first place finisher. She apparently is the 4th youngest woman to qualify for the CrossFit Games. Last year, we all know that we had Emma Carey and we had Mal O'Brien, who's going back again this year. But I guess in 2009, there was a 15-year-old woman who qualified for the games. Or I'm not sure if you just were able to show up that year, but there was a 15-year-old qualifier back in 2009 or competitor back in 2009. So she's the fourth youngest, but she won her semifinal. We've seen a lot of this changing of the guard. We've seen a lot of young women, especially winning semifinals. We have Emma Lawson here at Atlas Games. We have Mal O'Brien last week at Granite Games, 18. And we had Haley Adams over at the Syndicate Crown, 21. A lot of young women coming up, a lot of young women just dominating. It's very, very impressive at these ages to see these women going, head to head with women who are, close to twice their age. There could be a 30, 6-year-old, 8-year-old over in this field, and they're competing and they're winning. She was a second, first, sixth, third, first. I mean, her worst finish is a sixth, and that was on the barbell complex, which we've talked about over and over again, can kind of be an outlier. And she still did fairly well there, 17 years old, and sort of on the lighter side at 140. She did 212 on the barbell complex. Emma Lawson is somebody I think we could be talking about for years to come, and I'm very impressed by her performance this weekend. I know when we spoke about her in the preview, we talked a little bit about how she didn't do as well as we would expect at the open announcement that she was a part of. And that happens. She didn't do as well as we expected, but she is obviously a fierce competitor, did very well here with all of the limelight on her. She was definitely a name coming into this and just did well the whole time, continued to do well, didn't let it get to her, stayed in her own lane. 17 years old. I think she could be similar to Mal and be someone we see for years and years and years to come. Right below her, though, Paige Powers, 19, still extremely young, won the first event, 7th, 2nd, 3rd, 1st, 2nd. I mean, those are all great finishes as well. And she's another Mayhem athlete. We were talking earlier about Mayhem athletes just doing very well this year. She's another one. She trains out in Cookeville with all of those wonderful Cookeville athletes. She's training partners, I'm sure, with Haley Adams. You can see some similarities in the way they handstand walk. And that's going to be a great group of people to train with going into this game season. I think the Mayhem athletes are going to be people to look out for. Awesome for Paige Powers. I believe she competed as a teen. We can take a look at that. Yeah, it says she has 2 CrossFit Games appearances. 16 and 17-year-old division, she finished 3rd. In the 14th and 15th-year-old division, she finished 3rd. She probably would have went another year, but 2020, the games were canceled. Well, for the teens, the games didn't happen. So she didn't have the opportunity to go then, but I'm sure she was on track to go again. And now she's making it back for the first time as an individual woman. So Paige Powers really impressed me too. Take a look at these points. You can see that it was really just a battle between these 2 teens all weekend, 568 and 560. That's 2 places on any event. And it could have been Paige Powers as the winner. Over here, and you can see Emma actually didn't allow that to happen. She won the last event. Paige came in 2nd. If Paige wanted to win first place, she would have had to come in 1st and had someone sneak in between her and Emma, and that just didn't happen. But Paige did mention that she was keeping an eye on Emma in most of the events just for awareness to see where she was finishing, because usually Emma was either right next to her, right in front of her, or right behind her. So they were interviewed a bunch together. I hope that this is a battle we can see for years to come. And they seem friendly. And I think that's awesome too, to see competitors being friendly with one another. Caroline Connors might be the oldest, or no, she was not the oldest, but she's 29. She's the 2nd oldest in this group of women to qualify, because this was such a young group. But she did super well across the board. I believe people have mentioned she just got married to a competitor on the other side that didn't qualify. I believe his name was Spencer, last weekend or something, or one of these weekends. They were like, don't send us to these other events, we're getting married. So kind of cool to see that they're both competing at semifinals after their wedding. I also want to say that she's listed as 133 and was sixth on that barbell complex. So that's impressive to see too, because lighter athletes, as lighter athlete myself, I resonate with them, and it's cool to see what they can do, and hope that I can do like a quarter of it one day. I mean, I could do a quarter of that, but hope that I can get closer to numbers one day. Freya Mooseberger, she's a DECA comp athlete, so same training, not camp. It's not really a camp, but she's under Michelle Latondra, like Pat Vellner. And I think they have an awesome group of athletes. Like I said, it's not a camp like we see some of these other camps, like Mayhem, like Proven, like Underdogs. But they do sometimes get together and work out together. And Pat Vellner was definitely there supporting her. She's also a young athlete, 20. I think I heard this is only her second in-person comp. So the fact that she finished in fourth and punched her tickets to the CrossFit Games, awesome to see. Excited to see what we see from Freya at the games. Michelle Latondre is a fantastic coach and was a fantastic athlete. So I like seeing that she's still involved in CrossFit and she's still coaching people, and she'll be at the games coaching her athletes this year, and she's got multiple. So cool to see. Awesome to see Freya, another young person. We have, like I said, 17, 19, 20. Carolyn Connors, 29. And Carolyn Prevost, who is the oldest person, she was 30. She's 32. She had a little bit of a battle. Well, she was kind of clear of sixth by a lot, but she was in a higher position earlier on the weekend, had that 18th finish in event 5, kind of hurt her, then her 8th place finish. This was her worst day by far, but she had enough cushion that really there wasn't much of a threat. But what I will say is she is a full-time teacher. She has a full-time job. I know we talk about other people that have full-time jobs that, especially when they don't qualify as an excuse, but she did qualify and has a full-time job, works as a teacher. She runs like a CrossFit program for her students, introducing the next generation to CrossFit, which I think is so awesome. And it's awesome to see her go back to the games. And it was cool to see her talk about a little bit, like if you prioritize things, you can compete as someone who has a full-time job. You don't need to give up everything else just to be an athlete. I mean, not just to be an athlete. Being an athlete's definitely a full-time job, but it's impressive to see when people can do both. And she's doing both and doing it successfully, multi-year games athlete, and going back this year. So cool to see. Hope her students are cheering her on. Over in the last chance qualifier, I thought it was pretty awesome that Tori Dyson got in. She is over at CrossFit New England in Ben Bergeron's gym. She used to be a competitor. Now she just, I think, does the daily CrossFit workout. And that's pretty much it. I think she kind of retired from competition and happened to qualify for this, decided why not give it a go. And she finished 7th in her last chance qualifier position. I hope she does it. It'd be awesome to see how she does. I don't know what her mindset is with this, because I think it was just kind of like come for the fun of it. But I think Tori Dyson was a competitor. I think she still has that in her. We saw it this weekend as she battled into the top heat. And it would be awesome to see if she decides to do the last chance qualifier and see if she does well there. Going over to the teams, this is our last real leaderboard of the semifinals this year, guys. I'm a little sad. I'm going to miss doing these, but it's been awesome so far. And I appreciate all of you who are hanging out with me tonight, late night, 11:45 here, Pacific time. If you're on the East Coast, it's really late. If you're somewhere else, who knows what time it is. Good night, good morning, whatever. But on to this last leaderboard. CrossFit Omnia Black is our winner for the teams. CrossFit Omnia has been at the CrossFit Games before. This is a recognizable name. I didn't think they were going to come in first. I kind of thought that was going to be CrossFit Pro One Montreal, who also had an awesome weekend. They just had this 1 week event. Week is relative, but the 14th place finish in that barbell complex. I just don't believe their men were quite as strong as their women. I know their women did go to the 11th bar and did make their lift. I think their men fell out earlier, so take that for whatever that means. They're still obviously an awesome team with 2 first place finishes and 2 second place finishes. But I think that really was the difference maker. They're only 15 points out of first. That would have been 4 spots. 4 spots would have got them into that first place position. It's only a couple more pounds of that lift. So I think that it's probably their biggest weakness, but still an awesome team, multi-year games team. Excited to see them back. I think they could be a top 10 team. Maybe CrossFit Omnia Black can be too. I wasn't expecting them to do quite as well. I expected them to qualify, but not in that position. CrossFit Trennis Life Tree had 500 points, just 2 spots out of second. They could have been the second place team. So those 3 teams kind of separated themselves from the field. Then you had CrossFit Milford Team Conquer in fourth. I think they were a little bit farther clear of the cut line, but they had that 10th place finish in the last event. And then you had CrossFit East Woodbridge, who finished with 420 points in your 5th place position. I think they were a little nervous at the end, but still 20 points clear of that cut line. Nothing crazy. They kind of had some room to wiggle room there to deal with, but some good teams out here in Canada. First place team was an American team. 4th place team was an American team, but we got 3 Canadian teams in there. And I enjoyed Atlas Games. I enjoyed this whole weekend. I've enjoyed doing these semifinals, all chatting with all of you and getting to share my experience watching them. If you watch this weekend and you have any comments you'd like to leave, please leave them below. I respond to all the comments. I read all the comments, and I do try to give a thorough response to all of them. So if you have anything to say about this weekend's semifinals, I definitely want to hear that. Leave that below. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed and you're watching this right now. I have a lot more content to come, a lot more vlogs, some cool stuff, some body fat composition stuff I did that it'll be some cool data to look at. And then also I'll be at the CrossFit Games in August and doing some vlogging from there. So you'll definitely not want to miss that. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video if you've had a good time. I appreciate you all hanging out with me very, very late on a Sunday night. And hopefully I'll do some stuff for the Last Chance qualifier too. So make sure you check that out as well. I appreciate you all for watching and have a great week.